Good morning, everyone. I think I met most of you at dinner last night, but for those that I couldn't say hello to, I'm in the research department at JDRF, and our mission at JDRF is to find cures for type 1 diabetes as well as transformative therapies to treat type 1 diabetes and its complications. I have my colleague Mariana Marinak from the regulatory team here also in the room, and so I'll be happy to discuss with you all after the session is over if you have any questions. So, at JDRF, we support research and advocacy throughout the world, as I said, to find treatments and cures for type 1 diabetes. We are the world leading funder of type 1 diabetes research, non-federal funder, but we are humble enough to know we can't do it alone. And how have we been able to make progress so far, and how we are aware of where we need to go? This will be the kind of the topic of my discussion today, and give you some examples of where we have made good headway just because we work together with the type 1 diabetes research community, pharmaceutical industry, regulators, and in many cases payers as well. And hope we can emulate that in this MTM Vision Initiative as well. Consortium approach. This is not new to any of you all, but it helps truly bring multidisciplinary approaches together to solve complex problems, as Martin said in his opening remarks, that is not going to be able to be solved by any individual. And we have many examples of this. One of the seminal discoveries, or one of the seminal findings that JDF led, along with many investigators, other funding organizations, and the regulators, is staging type 1 diabetes. So type 1 diabetes was diagnosed in individuals, or still is, with an artificial cutoff of hemoglobin A1C. When a person is put on insulin treatment, when there's insufficient insulin production in the body. We, through 30 plus years of research in genetics, natural history of pathogenesis, symptomatology in the disease stages before one gets insulin dependent, found that you have the disease years, maybe decades before you're diagnosed with a hemoglobin A1C cutoff and put on insulin. Why don't we study those individuals? Preventions can be much easier than cures in many cases. Why can't we have preventive strategies? So once we were able to stage this, and kind of this became the new roadmap to follow in the world of type 1 diabetes research, and regulators also had buy-in, the payers had buy-in here, it immediately opened the floodgates for this R&D, for discovery and translation here. So the diagnosis here is shown in red, which is now labeled as stage 3 diabetes. So this, before the staging, this was when you were diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So it wasn't called stage 1, but hypothetically, let's call it stage 1 for now. But now this is stage 3 actually. So there's a stage 0, 1, and 2 here that predates insulin dependence by years or decades, as I said, that immediately opened avenues for prevention. And this is clinically and biologically validated through the boxes that are a little hard to read on the top, where you can actually have measures, critical endpoints, about beta cell function and insulin production, about autoantibody presence in your blood because of the active autoimmune system. And now with increasing evidence coming from continuous glucose monitoring about the glucose imbalances in real time that aren't picked up by a hemoglobin A1C number. That is one of the key things that has now gotten a lot of the research community involved in trying to find preventive therapies as well as disease-modifying therapies when type 1 diabetes has been diagnosed here. A few other examples of where this approach has been helpful is, and for today's, it's seminal for today's topic is clinical endpoints. Hemoglobin A1C is a very important number. It's through the DCCT and other follow-up studies, it is established as to be one of the best surrogates for determining long-term complications. However, it is not reflective of the day-to-day life of people with type 1 diabetes, or even type 2 diabetes, I'd posit. And so there are outcomes beyond A1C. Time in different glucose ranges, hypoglycemia, desired glucose range, hyperglycemia, diabetic ketoacidosis, so on and so forth, that are of incredible value, importantly to the person with diabetes, but also clinical meaningfulness. But they have been incorporated by the regulators in device-based approaches for approval of devices. We are now working hard with the regulatory agencies in the US and outside the US to ensure that they're adopted for disease-modifying therapies, as well as novel future generation cell replacement therapies here. So on and so forth about other clinical endpoints that I won't have time to get into, such as C-peptide, islet autoantibodies that were qualified by the EMA recently. Secondly, it opens translational pathways. And when we work together, now the Innovative Medicines Initiative in Europe, it's a public-private partnership, the artificial pancreas, which I'll give a couple more slides on in a second here, stem cell-based insulin replacement therapy, so on and so forth. It opens translation pathways here through the consortium approach. And then to the right here, which may or may not be relevant for today's discussion, is developing composite products. The artificial pancreas or automated insulin delivery system has 3 components to it. It's very difficult to get academic as well as industry people that have individual components to work together unless you force a marriage. And there, in the artificial pancreas systems, you have the insulin delivering pump, you have the continuous glucose monitor, and an algorithm that controls the 3 together. Likewise, in a beta cell stem cell replacement therapy product, you have the stem cells, you'll have protection strategies, and then you'll have important clinical surgical transplantation procedures there with probably some local immunosuppression. So we need to get our minds together to crack these nuts here. And I won't belabor this anymore. Outcomes beyond A1C actually led to a consensus statement that's now being adopted by many, many thought leaders in the field here. And so this is a more example. I'll make my slides available for future. This was a very important success in 2011 or 12, with JDF leading the way here with so many. And this is where I want to emphasize in the left of the slide that we can't do it alone. And that led to the guidance document from the FDA on clinical pathway towards the development of artificial pancreas therapies here. Then this today has paved the policy not only for product development, but also reimbursement strategies in the US and around the world here. So there's a lot that we can get here. So I will close by saying, the state multi-party, multidisciplinary stakeholder engagement is only the way to go. But let's not forget the center of the universe. That's a person with diabetes here. So let's have a paradigm shift in the way we think, not only for collaborating and partnering, but also, I would posit, I learned this early on in my career here, is bring the person with diabetes to the trial. Do not bring the trial to the person with diabetes. It is too late, far down the cascade then. So a call to action here is there's an urgent need for incorporating the person with diabetes perspective in product development, in R&D, in natural history pathogenesis, and also for policy change. So thank you all for your attention.